Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got to act fast here. I mean, we have trade deadlines coming up, if not next week, then the week after. So we got to go through, we got to dive into some players that we need to get off our rosters, ship them to our league mates before it's too late. But before we get into the video, go down there, drop a like on this bad boy, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football, and if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them down there in that comment section. And in that comment section, you can find a link to Underdog Fantasy where you can check out all these cool player props. When you sign up for Underdog and use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. Quick side note, I mean, the Courtland Sutton less than 54.5 receiving yards looking a little appealing. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm not the biggest Courtland Sutton fanboy in the world. I think that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into this. Starting off with the Chicago Bears. And no, I'm not going to tell you to sell Justin Fields. I think if you look at the rushing upside that Justin Fields has, we can safely say at this point that Justin Fields is an elite fantasy option at the quarterback position. Justin Fields this past week goes through, literally breaks NFL records for rushing yards in a game from the quarterback position. I mean, Justin Fields himself looks phenomenal, and you should be very excited about him in a 4-point passing touchdown league where we know rushing production is everything at the quarterback position. But I have seen some people getting a little off track with this Justin Fields breakout. I've seen some people going a little bit, I kind of want to call it crazy, in that they are now viewing guys like Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and Chase Claypool as viable options in fantasy. Now, I get it. Yes, Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, they were fine this past week. You actually have, a season high for Justin Fields in passing attempts at 28 passing attempts. He has 3 passing touchdowns as well, so those players look fine. But if we are projecting this out going forward, while yes, I agree that I think the Chicago Bears may see more passing attempts going forward than what they had at the beginning portion of the season, we need to still be very realistic with the passing volume that will be here for the Chicago Bears. If we look at the passing yards so far this season for Justin Fields, 121, 70, 106, 174. The season high, 208, 190, 179, 151, 123. Looks like Tyreek Hill's receiving yardage is Justin Fields' passing yardage. Now, of course, this can change a bit with the addition of Chase Claypool, with Justin Fields breaking out. Maybe they want to give him more dropbacks. Maybe they want to bump up the passing volume. But even if Justin Fields goes from a quarterback that's averaging about 140, 150 passing yards per game to a quarterback averaging 180, 190, even if he improves by 15 to 20%, you still can't start any pass catcher here comfortably. So please, get excited about Justin Fields himself because the rushing upside he has in fantasy. But if we can leverage any excitement that we have for his pass catchers, and then maybe move like Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, or Darnell Mooney in another bench piece, and get someone where he actually has passing volume in his offense, like Chris Godwin, I would really like that. But now going down to our next wide receiver, someone that has an absurd amount of passing volume in his offense, JuJu Smith-Schuster. Now with JuJu, I'm going to be hesitant to tell you to go through and trade him for anything you could get. Please don't just sell him for anything you could get. But he's coming off a 3-week stretch where he has been phenomenal. Against Buffalo 3 weeks back, 113 receiving yards, the receiving touchdown, and 5 receptions, giving you over 20 points. 2 weeks ago against San Francisco, the man 124 receiving yards, 7 receptions, and the receiving touchdown, giving you 25 points. This past week, almost getting you 20 points again with a season high in targets at 12. He has 10 receptions, 88 receiving yards. JuJu has been great. But at the same time, we need to look at how this situation may change going forward, and that with the addition of Kadarius Toney, we said this right when Toney was traded, I don't expect Toney to play the same position as JuJu. We know JuJu is that flanker wide receiver operating a little closer to the line of scrimmage, where I think that you actually have Kadarius Toney coming on and taking a little bit more from Mecole Hardman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore. But if we take a step back and look at the passing volume that's been here in Kansas City, I think that is unsustainable. And also, if we're you're expecting that to maybe regress back a little bit towards the mean, where Patrick Mahomes isn't going to have 70 dropbacks every single week. And on top of this, we're getting another wide receiver into the mix with Kadarius Toney. I think JuJu Smith-Schuster is a player that we're not selling just for whatever we can get. Like, trust me, I'd much prefer having JuJu over someone like Darnell Mooney, but I would at least be willing to throw him out there on the trade block, because I've seen some people be able to trade JuJu Smith-Schuster at a small piece to get to Amon-Ra St. Brown, to get to T. Higgins. While I would love for JuJu to finish out in that range, in reality, I have a hard time imagining that that's going to happen unless you expect that Patrick Mahomes continues to drop back 70 times a game. So don't trade him away for just anything, but hell, at least see what you could get. Now, our next guy, you can trade away for anything. Raheem Mostert. So with Mostert, I mean, for about 15 minutes in Miami, I was thinking he was a league-winning player. Once you had Chase Edmonds traded over to Denver, I was sitting here going, oh my gosh, I mean, I guess Raheem Mostert's going to be just crushing as the starting running back for Miami going forward. Well, then they trade for Jeff Wilson. I really didn't know how Jeff Wilson was going to be used. I thought Mostert was a running back that you had to start this past week against a bad Chicago Bears defense, where the Miami Dolphins were most likely going to be leading the majority of the game, and where I thought Jeff Wilson Jr. wasn't going to be implemented early on. I thought maybe it was going to take him a week or two, very similar to what we're seeing with players in other trades like Nyheim Hines, Kadarius Toney, but we were wrong, flat out wrong. I think it's due to the familiarity with the offensive system between the San Francisco 49ers as well as the Miami Dolphins with Jeff Wilson Jr. He came in, he hit the ground running. He actually had 2 more snaps than Raheem Mostert this past week. They split the backfield damn near 50-50, and if it was Jeff Wilson Jr. first week in here, he had been with the team for about 4 days. If he's already splitting the backfield 50-50, if he already looks like the better passing down running back, I'm going to project that he is the starting RB going forward. I think that maybe it's a little bit closer to a 60-40, 70-30 split, where Mostert is no longer going to be startable, because it's not like he's some phenomenal passing down running back. I think if you were to start him, you do need the majority of the touches out of the backfield. Now, our next guy also had his team trade for another running back, Devin Singletary. You know, we're going to continue to put Devin Singletary on these sell high videos as he has been for the past few months. With Devin Singletary, I mean, hell, his role didn't really go anywhere this past week. I thought Nyheim Hines was going to come in. Nyheim Hines was going to have some type of role. Nope. Devin Singletary still had 5 targets. So far this season, Devin Singletary has 35 targets. And on top of this, the man has 79 carries. Like, Devin Singletary has been a 3-down bell cow running back in Buffalo, and it's been very surprising. But if we're looking at the underlying numbers, he is still a running back that is not startable in fantasy. The man's played every single snap for the Buffalo Bills this year, and he has 347 receiving yards. While Nyheim Hines wasn't used at all his first week in Buffalo, hell, completely different offensive systems. I mean, it makes sense. Nyheim Hines had been in that offense for about 4 days. I think that they don't trade for Nyheim Hines just to have him as a third running back behind Devin Singletary and James Cook. James Cook's been expanding his role. Nyheim Hines being added on. I think it's going to primarily take from James Cook, but in reality, probably going to take a lot from Devin Singletary as well. I mean, if he's coming away with those 5 targets a game, I'm telling you, that number is going to dramatically come down. I think Devin Singletary is not going to be entirely removed from the passing offense, but pretty damn close if you have both James Cook and Nyheim Hines here. But now our next guy, he's been on a sell-high video for us for like a month right alongside Devin Singletary. Khalil Herbert. I mean, with Herbert, I'm going to stand by what we've said for a very long time now. He's a backup running back that doesn't catch passes. Okay, yes, he's looked phenomenal. Yes, he's averaged 6 yards per carry. Yes, he's busted off big play after big play after big play, and he's been much more efficient than David Montgomery. It doesn't matter. This coaching staff is still using David Montgomery as the starting running back, and Khalil Herbert is not a running back that you can start as a backup here. The reason for this is the target floor is so damn low. If we remove the 2 weeks where David Montgomery did not play this year, you're looking at 1, 1, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0 targets for Khalil Herbert. Maybe you want to keep him in a non-PPR format, but if he's not startable outside of a David Montgomery injury, I mean, hell, is Alexander Mattison with a lower ceiling? I think that's what he is. Like, I'm not starting either guy unless the starter goes down in front of him. And Alexander Mattison would have a much higher ceiling if you were to have an injury to Dalvin Cook. But now going over to our next wide receiver. He's been on every video. It'll be super brief. Terry McLaurin. Okay, with Terry McLaurin, we're going to keep on putting him on sell-high video after sell-high video after sell-high video. I still think this is a very bad offense. I still think when you get Jahan Dotson back in the long term, that the target share for Terry McLaurin is going to take a hit. He's already not a super great fantasy option. I know a lot of people love him because his Madden rating or whatever the reason is. If you look at it, Curtis Samuel scored more points than Terry McLaurin this year. Like, Terry McLaurin has the big name appeal. He's in a horrible offense. He has serious target competition. He's been outscored by Curtis Samuel. And when you get Jahan Dotson back, hell, I think that it's going to only get worse. So I know I've been annoying you for telling you to sell Terry McLaurin since week 1, but I'm sorry, we're going to keep on doing it. I still think it's a bad offense. I still think there are a lot of guys to be taking targets away from him. Now, going over to someone that I believe it's our first sell-high video with him, Jamal Williams. With Jamal Williams, he continues to rise more and more and more with his value. I mean, Jamal Williams this past week, 24 carries. The man has 8 rushing touchdowns so far this season. It's hard to find a running back with more rushing touchdowns than Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams has been great in the absence of DeAndre Swift. But at the same time, I mean, we are getting reports coming out of Detroit saying that DeAndre Swift should play more going forward. On top of this, it's the Detroit Lions. I know we have some Lions truthers out here for whatever reason. I mean, maybe they're crazy people have lost their minds, but I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. The Detroit Lions are going to be trailing the majority of games that they play in. Don't think that this is going to be a team that is able to go through and is able to just get a big lead at the beginning of the game, to be able to run the ball out in the second half. No, I think that the Lions are probably going to be trailing a lot of these contests. I think DeAndre Swift will be out there more and more as he gets healthier, and they clearly need a passing down running back in this offense. That's a lot better than Jamal Williams. Now, going over to our last player, a little trio of guys here. We're going to go with every pass catcher in San Francisco. We're going to be going with Deebo Samuel. We're going to be going with Brandon Ayuk. We're going to be going with George Kittle. In that, I think all of their per game numbers are skewed to an extreme amount. Because if we go through and if we look at how this offense has operated in the context of this team going forward. So earlier on this season, you had a large chunk of games with either George Kittle missing or George Kittle being extremely limited. That's inherently going to give a bump up to Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk with their target shares and their overall roles in San Francisco. And then right as George Kittle's coming back, what also happens? Then you have Christian McCaffrey adding on to this roster. And with Christian McCaffrey, his first weekend obviously is limited. I told everybody to play him because he's Christian McCaffrey, but he didn't know enough of the playbook. I mean, obviously, he was not an every down player. And right before we got to see George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel be an every down player in this offense, Deebo Samuel went down with his own injury. Deebo Samuel missed that game. So every single game this year, essentially, you've had one of George Kittle or Deebo Samuel not at 100%, and also Christian McCaffrey not at 100% in this offense. So once we get Deebo, Ayuk, Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey all in here, where are the targets coming from? Unless you think Jimmy Garoppolo and this 49ers offense, instead of prioritizing just going out there, running the ball, winning football games, as we know the 49ers like to do, unless they go, you know what, let's air it out. We have every weapon on planet Earth. Let's go through, let's have Jimmy G drop it back 50, 60 times a game, try to do our best impersonation of Kansas City. I don't see where the passing volume is coming from. I think it's going to be very hard for every one of these 49ers players to get there. If they had Andy Reid and Mahomes, then maybe it'd be a little bit different. But this is a team built on running the ball. They're going to be very efficient options because this offense should be very exciting. But at the end of the day, I think the targets are going to be way down. And I think that's all I got for you. Of course, thank you so much for checking out the video. If you enjoyed it, go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there in the comment section. I'll try to get to as many of those as I possibly can. And of course, you can find a link to Underdog Fantasy in that comment section. When you go and sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. You can check out all these cool player props and maybe look at the less than receiving yards on Russell Wilson. But thank you again. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day, and I'll be good to see you in the live stream tonight.